this should be semi-quick video economic stuff, so you're warned. Federal Reserve thing. So anyway, Modern Mystic on his Over the Peak website had a post. And he's done, periodically he returns to this subject where he saw something about like why don't the banks loan out the money in the reserve accounts, and I don't know why. I don't know why I'm having difficulty persuading him that the answer is obvious and simple. It's because they can't use the money. It's because the money wasn't put there through normal bank practice. So you have to understand, the reserve accounts were established basically to exchange money between banks as an efficient way to Bank A owes Bank B, the money is exchanged in the reserve accounts, and that facilitated an expedient way to transfer money between banks. And it had the secondary purpose of being reserve accounts, which meant the banks were obligated to have a certain amount of collateral, so to speak, a certain amount of equity to hedge against a run on the bank or something like that. They had to have something in the bank, actually. And that's the intention of the reserve accounts, is to create an institution that enforces the reserve minimums. Now essentially they've gotten rid of the reserve minimums, but the idea of doing the bank transfers is still a vital way of facilitating transfers between banks, is that it's done by the Federal Reserve Bank. And it's a way of monitoring things, and there's a lot of advantages to having it set up that way. So traditionally, when the government wanted to, technically they never said we're going to print some extra money, cash, and put it into circulation. So they never really let you know when they were doing that. But every now and then, they would put extra money in the reserve accounts, okay, to increase the amount of currency in circulation. So, say in 1980, the amount of currency in circulation was 300 billion or something. It's now 1.2 trillion. And so that's essentially what inflation has been since 1980. It's like this 400 or 500% number. So it's the same number. So you can kind of see a correlation between the amount of cash the Fed has actually released in cash notes and the inflation of the dollar. And it makes sense that the two would be closely related, just like if there's 5 extra Picassos, Picassos get less valuable. And if there's 5 less because they get burned up in a fire, they become more valuable. Well, the same is true for the currency. So what has to be understood is the money in the Federal Reserve accounts didn't get there through normal bank transfers, where Bank A owed Bank B and the money was in the reserve accounts. And banks could put money in the reserve accounts technically. They could leave it in the reserve accounts because the government always took in all the bad money, all the money that was broken, like dollar bills recycled every 2 years, I think. 3 years, something like that. So money gets degraded. It goes to the Federal Reserve to get cleaned, the U.S. Treasury ultimately, but anyway, it goes to the Federal Reserve first, and they put it back, the money that they owe to the banks, into the reserve accounts. And then the banks can choose to pull it out as new cash. But that's how they put money, that's how they got cash into circulation, technically. Anyway, so the reserve accounts were usually the bankers' money, is the point. Primarily, it was money that the banks, the Fed actually owed the banks. It was their money. The money in the Federal Reserve accounts now has nothing to do with any bank practices. It has entirely to do with the Fed asking the banks, to buy $5 trillion worth of bonds and junk and shit off the market so they can hide it in a box that's sort of locked, so they can pretend they don't have as much debt on the market as they do, because bond prices are so horribly low anyway. And they can't sell these damn things, and they don't want to pay interest on them. So the way you avoid interest payments on bonds is you take bonds off the market. You also, by doing that, take things off the rich man purchase list. So it's like only rich people buy Rolls Royces and Lamborghinis and all this stuff, and only rich people would buy any of this crap, these bonds, and bankers, and hold them. So the only market you're affecting is the mega rich market. And you're basically saying, you're basically giving them, you're taking a whole bunch of Rolls Royces, you're decommissioning them off the market, buying them off the market. So the ones that are left will sell at a higher price. So essentially, by buying all this $5 trillion worth of stuff only rich people buy, they've left it so the stock market had to go up, because they basically took $5 trillion of stuff rich people would own, and the federal government now owns it, technically. Technically, the banks own it, because it was the bankers' digits. And the Federal Reserve account is just the government basically securing the loan. So essentially, it's a secured loan. And the banks can't spend the collateral for the loan. They can't loan the collateral for the loan. But even if they could, because there are no reserve requirements, they've essentially been told by the banks they can't, because that is now printed money. So as soon as any of that reserve money goes out without selling some of the stuff the government bought, the government doesn't sell what it bought with the money, and instead the banks take the money out of the reserve accounts, what will happen is that will be effectively new printed money. And instead of $1.2 trillion in circulation, there'll be, if they took all $5 trillion out, $6.2 trillion in circulation. So you can obviously see that, you know, whatever that would be, 4,000 or 5,000% inflation, that's not going to happen. So clearly there's been an agreement. The federal government has told the banks, look, you buy the crap with your banker digits, and effectively that's as far as it'll go. It won't be like real money in the economy, because the only part of the economy it'll affect is the stock market. And it affected no other part of the economy. Everybody saw that, right? QE didn't make jobs. It didn't fix anything. It made the richer richer. Yes, okay. Stock market went way up, so the rich got filthy richer, and that creates some trickle down. But it's as trickle down as you can get. I mean, this is Reaganomics all over again. Okay, make the rich preposterously richer, and some crumbs will fall on your head. You know, some of the cake crumbs. But that's all it was engineered for. It was to rescue the stock market, which was had nowhere to go except down, and they couldn't allow it to go down because they don't have nobody has any money, and they can't let the stock market go down, because if the stock market goes down, then bonds have to be sold with interest. You're not going to be able to sell. If the stock market goes down, the rich get poor. That means there'll be nobody to buy the bonds. That means you have to increase the interest rates really, really high to get people to buy them. You have to make them so attractive that people can't resist, you know, borrowing the money to buy the bonds, effectively. So anyway, that's the answer. So he does all this talking about 5% mortgage and all kinds of shenanigans, and says this is why they don't do it, is because somehow they won't make money on the deal. No, they're not doing it because it's not their money, technically. It's only their money if it's not their money. The money bought $5 trillion worth of assets. The money's already been spent, and it can't be used again because it's already spent money. You can't spend it twice. I mean, you can, but if you do, it's printed cash, and that's the key part of it. It's not even so much that you're going to loan on loans, because people do that all the time. They have all this leverage and bullshit. You know, loans on top of loans on top of loans. But you can't do that with this particular money, because this particular money will be new cash. It will be new dollar bills in circulation. It will increase that 1.2 trillion, whatever amount they take out. And you can imagine that with $5 trillion, even taking out 10% of it would have a huge impact on the amount of money in circulation, which likely would create some sort of inflation, percentage-wise. I mean, inflation is actually caused by printing money. It's not caused by anything else. If you don't print cash, your dollar will remain vital. If you print cash, your money will turn to shit. It'll inflate out of its value, or deflate, however you want to look at it. So anyway, I know the Mystic doesn't make videos, and he's not really engaged, and comment on other message boards now. He seems motivated to do that, but anyway, I just thought I'd throw it out there again. That's the explanation. Okay, this is QE was a contrivance to save the mega wealthy, because if the mega wealthy go down, everything goes down. The bond market goes insane, and everything just flies right into inflation toilet, because then you just have to start printing money, because you won't be able to collect revenues to pay the interest on the debt. It's going to be that bad. I mean, it's going to happen anyway, but I'm just saying that's why they can't. They're not taking the reserve money and buying something with it. Even like, I mean, asking why aren't they loaning it is silly, when the real question is, why aren't they buying equities with it? Well, they're not doing that because they know they can't do that, because it's printed money then. And they've been told they can't do that. It's not their money. The Federal Reserve accounts are not what they were 10 years ago. They've changed the game. And it's not the same game. So anyway, enough of a video. Until next time.